Have you ever wondered how a simple children's book could revolutionise an entire industry and change the way millions of kids learn to read? Well, buckle up, because today we're diving deep into one of the most influential books ever written, and trust me, by the end of this video, you'll never look at Dr. Seuss the same way again. Picture this, it's 1954, and children across America are struggling with boring, lifeless reading, primers filled with sentences like "See Jane run" and "Dick has a ball." Reading education was failing, kids were losing interest, and parents were desperate for something, anything, that could make their children actually want to pick up a book. Then, like a bolt of lightning, one man stepped forward with a radical idea that would shake the foundations of children's literature forever. That man was Theodore Seuss Geisel, better known as Dr. Seuss, and the book he created wasn't just another story, it was a weapon against literacy, a revolution disguised as entertainment, and a masterpiece that would sell over 10 million copies worldwide. But here's the kicker. It all started with a challenge that seemed impossible to overcome. The Cat in the Hat stands as one of the most significant literary achievements in children's education, fundamentally transforming how young readers engage with books. Published in 1957 by Random House, the seemingly simple 61-page story emerged from a critical moment in American education when traditional reading primers were failing to capture children's imagination and enthusiasm for learning. Dr. Seuss, whose real name was Theodore Seuss Geisel, accepted an extraordinary challenge from publisher Bennett Cerf and educator William Spalding. They presented him with a list of 348 words that first and second graders could recognise, demanding he create an entertaining story using only these vocabulary constraints. The goal was revolutionary: produce a book that children would actually want to read, not just be forced to read. What makes this book truly remarkable is how it emerged from educational crisis. Traditional primers, like the Dick and Jane series, had dominated classrooms for decades, but their sterile, repetitive nature was crushing young readers' natural curiosity. Children were learning to decode words, but losing their love for reading in the process. Educators recognised this devastating pattern, but struggled to find alternatives that balance educational necessity with genuine entertainment. Seuss spent over a year crafting this masterpiece, meticulously selecting each word to ensure it appeared on the approved vocabulary list while maintaining narrative flow and excitement. He reduced complex storytelling to its essential elements, proving that limitation could spark incredible creativity rather than hinder it. The book's success wasn't accidental, it was the result of careful planning, educational expertise, and artistic brilliance converging at exactly the right moment. The cultural impact extended far beyond bookstores and classrooms. The Cat in the Hat launched Beginner Books, a new publishing division specifically designed for emerging readers. It challenged the educational establishment's assumptions about what children could handle and enjoy. More importantly, it demonstrated that learning could be fun without sacrificing educational value. Parents immediately recognised something special about this book. Unlike previous children's literature that talked down to young readers, The Cat in the Hat respected their intelligence while meeting them at their developmental level. The story's rhythm, rhyme and repetition weren't just entertaining, they were scientifically designed to support reading development and memory retention. The book's influence on subsequent children's literature cannot be overstated. It opened doors for countless authors who had been constrained by educational publishers' rigid requirements. Suddenly, creativity and curriculum could coexist, inspiring generations of writers to push boundaries while serving young readers' needs. Today, nearly 70 years after its publication, The Cat in the Hat remains as relevant and powerful as ever. It continues to serve as a bridge between reluctant readers and literacy, proving that the right story, told the right way, can change lives forever. On a cold, wet day, when outdoor play is impossible, two children, Sally and her brother, find themselves trapped indoors with nothing to do. Their mother has left them alone, and the dreary weather has eliminated all possibilities for adventure. The children sit by the window, staring at the rain, feeling bored and frustrated by their circumstances. Into this mundane scene bursts an extraordinary visitor, a tall, anthropomorphic cat wearing a distinctive red and white striped hat and a red bow tie. The cat announces his intention to show the children some fun games, but his presence immediately creates tension. The family's pet fish, swimming in his bowl, serves as the voice of caution and responsibility, warning the children that their mother wouldn't approve of the stranger's visit. Despite the fish's protests, the cat begins demonstrating his remarkable balancing abilities. He stands on a ball while simultaneously juggling multiple objects including a book, a cup, a cake, a toy ship and other household items. The children watch in amazement as the cat performs increasingly complex tricks, but disaster strikes when he loses control. Everything crashes to the floor, creating chaos and mess throughout the house. The fish feels vindicated in his warnings, scolding the cat for the destruction he's caused. However, the cat remains undeterred by the setback. He promises the children even more excitement and disappears briefly, only to return with a large red box. From this mysterious container emerge two small, identical creatures with blue hair, whom the cat introduces as Thing 1 and Thing 2. These energetic beings immediately begin racing throughout the house, flying kites indoors and causing exponentially more chaos than the cat's initial performance. They knock over furniture, scatter papers, and create such pandemonium that the fish becomes increasingly frantic. The children watch in horror and fascination as their orderly home transforms into a disaster zone. The situation reaches a crisis point when the children spot their mother returning home. Panic sets in as they realise the impossible task of explaining the mess to her. The brother finally takes decisive action, using a net to capture Thing 1 and Thing 2, despite their attempts to escape. This moment represents the children's first assertion of control over the chaotic situation. Faced with the captured things and the children's determination to restore order, the cat acknowledges that his visit must end. He packs Thing 1 and Thing 2 back into their red box and prepares to leave. However, in a surprising turn of events, the cat reveals one final trick, a massive cleaning machine that he produces from his hat. This miraculous device quickly and efficiently restores the house to its original condition. Every overturned piece of furniture returns to its proper place, every scattered paper finds its way back to neat piles, and every trace of the afternoon's chaos disappears. The cat tips his hat politely and vanishes just as the children's mother enters the house. The story concludes with the mother asking the children about their day, creating a moment of moral ambiguity. The children must decide whether to tell her about their extraordinary visitor or keep the experience secret. The book ends without revealing their choice, leaving readers to contemplate this ethical dilemma themselves. The opening scene establishes the story's central conflict through environmental constraints that every child recognises. The cold, wet weather creates a prison of boredom that resonates with young readers who have experienced similar frustrating situations. Seuss masterfully uses this universal childhood experience to create immediate emotional connection, making readers feel the children's restlessness and desperation for entertainment. The mother's departure adds another layer of freedom and responsibility, setting up the moral framework that will guide the entire narrative. The cat's dramatic entrance represents the story's first major turning point, introducing the central character whose presence will drive all subsequent action. His appearance is carefully crafted to be both appealing and slightly unsettling, tall, confident and charismatic, yet clearly not belonging in the ordered domestic space. The cat's opening dialogue reveals his understanding of the children's predicament, while simultaneously establishing his role as both solution and problem. His promise to show them some good games carries implications that extend far beyond simple entertainment. The fish's introduction, as the voice of conscience, creates the story's fundamental tension between fun and responsibility. This character serves as more than just a pet. He represents the internalized rules and expectations that govern civilized behavior. His immediate recognition of the cat as a threat demonstrates wisdom gained through experience, while his physical limitations highlight the powerlessness that children often feel when faced with adult authority. The fish's protests establish the stakes and consequences that will drive the narrative forward. The cat's balancing act represents the seductive appeal of chaos disguised as skill and entertainment. His ability to juggle multiple objects while maintaining perfect balance symbolizes the attractive promise that rules can be bent without consequences. The specific items he balances, books, cups, cakes, and toys, represent the everyday objects of childhood that suddenly become magical through his manipulation. This sequence demonstrates how easily order can be disrupted when fascinating alternatives present themselves, teaching children about the relationship between attention and control. That the inevitable crash serves as the story's first major consequence, proving that actions have results regardless of intentions. This moment forces all characters to confront the reality that fun often comes with costs, and that spectacular abilities don't guarantee successful outcomes. The fish's reaction provides vindication for his earlier warnings, while highlighting the importance of heeding wise counsel. The children's response reveals their growing understanding that their initial excitement may have been misguided. The introduction of Thing 1 and Thing 2 escalates the chaos exponentially, demonstrating how small compromises can lead to increasingly serious problems. These creatures represent pure, unrestrained energy, without consciousness or consideration for consequences. Their identical appearance and behaviour suggest that destructive forces often multiply when left unchecked. The cat's presentation of them as entertainment reveals how easily authority figures can manipulate children's natural curiosity and desire for excitement. The indoor kite flying sequence represents the complete abandonment of appropriate boundaries and the transformation of domestic space into a playground. This activity violates fundamental rules about indoor behaviour while creating genuine danger for both property and safety. The children's growing alarm demonstrates their developing understanding of appropriate limits and their recognition that exciting activities can become genuinely threatening. The fish's increasingly frantic warnings emphasise the escalating nature of the crisis. The mother's approaching return creates urgent necessity for decision-making and action, forcing the children to choose between passive observation and active intervention. This moment represents a crucial developmental milestone where children must decide whether to accept responsibility for their environment or allow chaos to continue unchecked. The brother's decision to capture Thing 1 and Thing 2 demonstrates courage, initiative, and moral growth. His action proves that even children can take control of situations when they recognise the necessity for intervention. The cat's final cleaning demonstration reveals the story's most important lesson about accountability and restoration. His magical machine represents the idealised solution to problems: quick, efficient, and complete restoration of order. However, this resolution also raises questions about whether consequences can truly be erased and whether the experience itself has value regardless of its visible traces. The cat's polite departure contrasts sharply with his chaotic presence, suggesting that disruptive forces can exit as suddenly as they arrive. The story's conclusion presents readers with an unresolved moral dilemma that extends the book's impact beyond its final page. The children's choice about whether to tell their mother about their adventure forces readers to consider questions of honesty, consequences, and the value of experience versus security. This open ending respects children's intelligence while encouraging them to think critically about ethical decisions and their own capacity for moral reasoning. The first crucial lesson involves understanding that boredom often precedes the most memorable experiences and personal growth opportunities. When children feel trapped by circumstances beyond their control, they become more receptive to new possibilities and adventures. The story demonstrates that uncomfortable situations can serve as catalysts for change, pushing individuals toward experiences they might otherwise avoid. This principle encourages readers to view challenging moments as potential doorways rather than permanent obstacles, fostering resilience and adaptability in the face of difficulties. Personal responsibility emerges as a central theme through the children's journey from passive observers to active participants in their own lives. Initially, they simply watch events unfold around them, but circumstances eventually force them to make decisions and take control. The brother's decisive action in capturing Thing 1 and Thing 2 represents a crucial moment of maturation where he chooses his responsibility over continued entertainment. This progression teaches readers that growing up involves recognising when situations require intervention and having the courage to act appropriately. The story illustrates how seemingly harmless compromises can escalate into serious problems when left unchecked. The cat's initial balancing act appears innocent and entertaining, but it leads to increasingly chaotic situations that threaten the children's safety and security. Each successive activity builds upon the previous one, demonstrating how small violations of rules and boundaries can snowball into major crises. This lesson helps readers understand the importance of maintaining standards and recognising warning signs before situations become unmanageable. Authority figures don't always have children's best interests at heart, and young people must develop their own judgment about when to trust adult guidance. The cat presents himself as a benevolent entertainer, but his actions create genuine danger and distress for the children. His charismatic personality and impressive abilities mask his disregard for their well-being and their mother's rules. This teaches readers to evaluate people based on their actions rather than their appearances or promises, developing critical thinking skills essential for navigating complex social situations. The fish character demonstrates that wisdom often comes from unexpected sources and that good advice shouldn't be dismissed based on the messenger's apparent limitations. Despite being confined to a bowl and lacking physical power, the fish consistently provides accurate warnings and sound guidance throughout the story. His predictions prove correct, and his concerns are ultimately validated by events. This lesson encourages readers to listen carefully to various perspectives and to recognise that valuable insights can come from anyone, regardless of their status or apparent authority. Consequences cannot always be completely erased. even when problems appear to be solved. Although the cat's cleaning machine restores the house to its original condition, the children's experience and the knowledge they've gained cannot be undone. They must still decide whether to tell their mother about their adventure, suggesting that actions have lasting effects beyond their immediate visible results. This understanding helps readers recognise that choices have permanent dimensions and that responsibility extends beyond simply fixing obvious problems. The story reveals that excitement and safety exist in constant tension, and that pursuing one often requires sacrificing some degree of the other. The cat's activities provide genuine entertainment and wonder, but they also create real risks and challenges for the children. The most thrilling moments coincide with the greatest dangers, forcing readers to consider whether temporary pleasure justifies potential long-term costs. This balance encourages thoughtful decision-making and helps develop mature judgment about risk assessment. Moral dilemmas rarely have clear-cut solutions, and ethical decision-making requires careful consideration of multiple factors and perspectives. The children's final choice about whether to tell their mother highlights the complexity of honesty, trust, and responsibility in relationships. Arguments exist for both revealing and concealing their adventure, each with potential benefits and drawbacks. This ambiguity teaches readers that ethical choices often involve competing values, and that moral maturity includes accepting responsibility for difficult decisions. The power of narrative structure demonstrates how stories can teach complex lessons while maintaining engagement and entertainment value. Dr. Seuss uses rhythm, repetition, and carefully paced escalation to create a reading experience that feels natural and enjoyable while conveying sophisticated ideas about responsibility, authority, and moral reasoning. This technique shows how effective communication can make difficult concepts accessible and memorable, providing a model for clear thinking and expression. Finally, the story emphasizes that individual agency and personal choice remain possible, even in situations that seem overwhelming or beyond control. Despite the chaos surrounding them, the children retain the ability to make meaningful decisions about their responses and actions. Their choices ultimately determine the story's outcome, reinforcing the idea that people can influence their circumstances through thoughtful action and moral courage, regardless of their age or apparent powerlessness. The Cat in the Hat stands as far more than a simple children's story. It represents a masterful blend of entertainment and education that continue to shape young minds decades after its creation. Dr. Seuss achieved something remarkable by proving that learning could be genuinely fun without sacrificing intellectual rigour or moral complexity. The book's enduring popularity demonstrates that children hunger for stories that respect their intelligence while meeting their developmental needs. The story's layered meanings ensure that readers discover new insights with each encounter, making it a book that grows with its audience. Its exploration of responsibility, authority, and moral reasoning provides frameworks that remain relevant throughout life, while its engaging narrative structure makes these lessons memorable and accessible. The open ending's invitation for readers to consider their own choices transforms passive reading into active moral engagement. Perhaps most importantly, The Cat in the Hat proved that literature could serve as a bridge between education and entertainment, inspiring countless other creators to push boundaries while serving young readers' needs. Its influence extends far beyond the millions of copies sold, having fundamentally changed how we approach children's literacy and learning. In our age of digital distractions and shortened attention spans, this timeless story reminds us that the right book, crafted with skill and respect for its audience, can still change lives and spark imaginations in ways that no technology can replicate.